The call came at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, jarring me awake from dreams I couldn't remember. I fumbled for my phone in the darkness, my heart already racing with the kind of adrenaline that comes from late-night calls. Nothing good ever happens at 2 a.m. Marcus, the voice on the other end, was tight with pain, trying to sound casual and failing miserably. "Hey man, sorry to wake you, I need help." I was already sitting up, my feet hitting the cold hardwood floor. "Ethan, what's wrong? Where are you?" "I'm at County General. I had an accident at the gym. They're saying I broke my wrist and messed up my shoulder pretty bad." He paused, and I could hear the embarrassment in his voice even through the pain. "They want to keep me overnight for observation, but after that, Marcus, I can't really use my right arm at all, and my left is pretty limited too." My stomach dropped. Ethan was the most independent person I knew, fiercely so, sometimes to the point of stubbornness. Asking for help must have cost him everything. "I'm on my way," I said, already reaching for the jeans I'd discarded on my bedroom chair. 20 minutes, don't go anywhere." His laugh was weak but genuine. "Not much chance of that, thanks Marcus, I owe you." "You don't owe me anything," I said firmly. "That's what best friends are for." I hung up and stood in my dark apartment, letting the reality of the situation wash over me. Ethan needed help. Ethan, who'd been my best friend since freshman year of college, who'd stood by me through my coming out, through my messy breakup with David, through every crisis and celebration of the last 8 years. Ethan, who I'd been hopelessly in love with for almost as long as I'd known him. I pushed that thought down into the locked box where I kept all my feelings about Ethan, the box labeled things that can never happen, and grabbed my keys. The emergency room was the special kind of hell that only exists in the small hours of the morning. Fluorescent lights too bright, the smell of antiseptic and desperation, people in various states of distress scattered across plastic chairs. I found Ethan in a curtained-off area, his right arm in a cast from fingers to elbow, his left in a sling, his face pale with pain and exhaustion. "You look like hell," I said, pulling back the curtain. "You should see the other guy," Ethan tried to joke, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The other guy being a 45-pound weight plate that I dropped directly onto my wrist. Very heroic story. I'm sure it'll be great to tell at parties. I pulled up a chair beside his bed, taking in the extent of the damage. The cast was bright white and bulky, immobilizing everything from his fingertips to halfway up his forearm. His shoulder was wrapped heavily, the sling holding his left arm at an awkward angle. "What did the doctors say?" "Clean break in the wrist, needs 6 to 8 weeks to heal. Shoulder is a partial tear of the rotator cuff, nothing that needs surgery, but it's going to be painful and limited for at least a month." Ethan's jaw tightened. "They're discharging me in the morning with enough pain meds to knock out a horse and a list of things I'm not allowed to do, which is basically everything." "Okay," I said, my mind already racing through logistics. "So you'll stay with me." "Marcus, I can't." "You absolutely can, and you will." I cut him off before he could launch into the independence speech I knew was coming. "Your apartment is a 4th-floor walk-up with no elevator. Mine is ground floor with accessible everything. You literally cannot take care of yourself right now. This isn't up for debate." Ethan looked like he wanted to argue, but the exhaustion and pain won out. "Just for a few days, until I figure something else out." "We'll see," I said, knowing already that a few days would turn into however long it took for him to heal. "For now, let's focus on getting you out of here and into an actual bed." They discharged him at 7 a.m. with prescriptions, instructions, and stern warnings about keeping the cast dry and not overexerting the shoulder. Ethan could barely keep his eyes open by the time I got him settled in my car, the pain medication they'd given him finally kicking in enough to let him relax. "You're a good friend," he mumbled as I drove toward my apartment, his head lolling against the window. "Best friend, don't know what I'd do without you." "Lucky you'll never have to find out," I said lightly, even as my heart clenched at the casual affection in his drugged voice. He was asleep before we made it to my building. Getting Ethan from the car to my apartment was an adventure in logistics. At 6'2" and solid muscle from years of dedicated gym time, he wasn't exactly easy to maneuver, especially when he was dead weight with exhaustion and medication. But we managed, and I got him settled in my guest room, the one I'd been using as a home office but could easily convert back. He woke up briefly when I was removing his shoes, his eyes unfocused and confused. "Marcus, where?" My place, guest room, you're safe. I pulled a blanket over him. Sleep, we'll figure everything else out later. He was out again before I finished speaking. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him sleep. His dark hair was a mess falling across his forehead. His face, usually so animated and expressive, was peaceful in sleep despite the pain I knew he was in. Even injured and exhausted, he was beautiful. I'd known Ethan was beautiful since the moment we met 8 years ago in an introduction to philosophy class. I'd been a nervous freshman, still figuring out who I was. Ethan had been confident, friendly, the kind of person who made everyone around him feel included and important. We'd been paired for a project, and I'd fallen in love somewhere between arguing about Kant and eating terrible cafeteria pizza at 2 in the morning. The fact that Ethan was straight had been a minor detail I'd chosen to ignore at first, until he'd started dating Sarah in our sophomore year. That had been my wake-up call, the moment I'd had to face reality and lock my feelings away in that mental box labeled impossible. We'd stayed best friends through it all, through his relationship with Sarah and their eventual breakup, through my coming out junior year and Ethan's unwavering support, through my relationship with David and that spectacular flameout, through jobs and moves and all the chaos of early adulthood. And now here we were, Ethan injured and vulnerable in my guest room, and me trying desperately to remember all the reasons why my feelings had to stay locked away. I closed the door quietly and went to make coffee. It was going to be a long day. Ethan slept for most of that first day, waking only to take more pain medication and accept the simple food I could get him to eat. By evening, though, the worst of the medication fog had cleared, and he was awake enough to be frustrated. "I can't do anything," he said, staring at his cast with barely concealed anger. "I can't type, can't cook, can't even tie my own damn shoes. How am I supposed to work like this?" Ethan was a graphic designer who worked primarily from home, which I'd thought would make the injury easier to manage. But watching him try to navigate his laptop one-handed made it clear this was going to be a bigger challenge than either of us had anticipated. "We'll figure it out," I said, setting a plate of pasta in front of him, cut into small, manageable pieces because he couldn't handle a knife and fork simultaneously. Voice-to-text software for emails, maybe a stylus you can hold in your left hand for design work. There are solutions. "I have 3 projects due next week," Ethan said, but he picked up his fork and started eating. 3 major clients counting on me, and I'm sitting here unable to even feed myself without help. "You're feeding yourself right now. You cut my food into toddler-sized pieces." "Details?" I settled into the chair across from him with my own plate. "Ethan, you had a serious accident. You're allowed to need help. You're allowed to be frustrated, but you're also one of the most determined people I know. You'll adapt, you always do." He was quiet for a moment, pushing pasta around his plate. When he looked up, his expression was softer, grateful. "I really don't know what I'd do without you." "Starve, probably. I've seen what you consider cooking when you're at full capacity." That got a genuine laugh out of him, and some of the tension left his shoulders. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of easy quiet that only comes from years of friendship. It wasn't until later, when Ethan tried to get ready for bed, that the real challenges became apparent. "Marcus," his voice came from the guest room, tight with embarrassment. I need help." I found him standing beside the bed in the jeans and t-shirt he'd been wearing since the hospital, his face flushed with humiliation. "I can't get my shirt off," he admitted. "I tried, but I can't lift my left arm enough and the cast won't fit through the sleeve." "Okay," I said, keeping my voice matter-of-fact even as my heart rate kicked up. "No problem, we'll cut it off." "Cut it." "The shirt, not your arm." I went to grab scissors from the kitchen. "It's just a t-shirt, we can sacrifice it in the name of getting you comfortable." I tried not to think too hard about what I was doing as I carefully cut through the fabric, peeling it away from his body. Tried not to notice the warmth of his skin, the definition of muscles I'd only ever seen when we went swimming or he was particularly sweaty after a run. Tried to be professional and friendly and absolutely nothing else. "Thanks," Ethan said quietly when I'd finished, his cheeks still pink. "This is so humiliating." "It's not humiliating, it's just life sometimes." I gathered up the destroyed shirt. "Do you need help with anything else?" He hesitated, then shook his head. I can manage the pants, I think, and I'm sleeping in boxers tonight because I am not asking you to help me with pajamas. Fair enough, I moved toward the door. Call if you need anything, I'm right across the hall. I heard him struggling with his jeans for 10 minutes before pride gave way to necessity and he called me back. We worked out a system, him sitting on the bed, me helping with the button and zipper, both of us pretending this wasn't incredibly awkward and intimate. I'm going to owe you so many favors when this is over, Ethan said as I finally got him settled under the covers. Keep a list, I said lightly, I'll collect when you're healed. I closed the door and leaned against it in the hallway, my heart pounding. This was day one, and I was already struggling with the proximity, the intimacy, the careful balance between being helpful and keeping my feelings locked away. This was going to be the longest 6 weeks of my life. We fell into a routine over the next few days. I'd wake up first, make coffee, and check on Ethan. I'd help him get dressed in clothes we'd modified, t-shirts with the right sleeve cut wider to accommodate the cast, pants with elastic waists that didn't require complicated fastening. I'd make breakfast, cut his food into manageable pieces, and set up his laptop with the assistive software we downloaded. Then I'd head to my own work. I was a software developer who also worked from home, which made the whole situation more manageable. We'd work in companionable silence, me at the kitchen table, Ethan on the couch with his laptop propped on pillows. I'd make lunch, help him with anything he needed, then we'd both work through the afternoon. Evenings were the hardest. That's when Ethan's frustration with his limitations peaked, when the pain broke through his medication, when the reality of how long recovery would take really hit him. I hate this, he said one evening, staring at his cast like it was a personal enemy. I hate being useless. I hate needing help with everything. I hate that I can't even scratch my own nose without it being a production. You're not useless, I said from the kitchen where I was making dinner. You finished 2 client projects today. That's pretty impressive for someone who's supposedly useless. It took me 3 times as long as it normally would. So, you still did it. I brought over 2 plates, setting his in front of him. Ethan, you're healing, that takes time. Being impatient with yourself isn't going to speed it up. He picked at his food, his mood clearly dark. I've always been able to handle things myself. I don't like depending on people. I know, but sometimes we don't get a choice. I settled into my usual chair, and for what it's worth, you're not depending on me. We're friends. This is what friends do. Friends don't usually have to cut each other's food and help them get dressed. Friends do whatever needs doing. I met his eyes steadily. And honestly, Ethan, you'd do the same for me in a heartbeat, you know you would. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I would. Then stop feeling guilty about it and eat your dinner. That night, as I was helping him get ready for bed, a routine we'd streamlined but that was still awkward, Ethan suddenly asked, "Do you remember when we first met?" Philosophy 101, I said immediately. You argued that Kant's categorical imperative was fundamentally flawed because it didn't account for cultural relativism. Professor Morrison looked like he wanted to kiss you or strangle you, he couldn't decide which. Ethan laughed. You were so quiet that first class, I thought you were shy. Then we got assigned that project together and you absolutely destroyed my entire argument about utilitarianism. You needed destroying, your logic was full of holes. It was not. Ethan, you tried to argue that the greatest good for the greatest number justified literally any action. I brought up Nazi Germany and your whole argument collapsed. Okay, fine, maybe I was a little overzealous in my defense. He was smiling now, the dark mood from earlier lifting. But we made a good team on that project, got an A. We did. I finished helping him into his modified t-shirt. Why are you thinking about that? He shrugged with his good shoulder. I don't know, just feeling grateful, I guess, that you're the person I called that night, that you're the person who's here helping me. I can't imagine doing this with anyone else. My heart did something complicated in my chest. Well, lucky for you, you don't have to imagine it, you're stuck with me. Good, he said softly, I wouldn't want it any other way. I said goodnight and closed the door, then stood in the hallway trying to remember how to breathe normally. This was fine, everything was fine. I just had to keep the boundaries clear, keep my feelings locked away, and get through the next several weeks without doing anything stupid. How hard could that be? The answer, it turned out, was very hard. Because every day brought new challenges that required increasing levels of physical proximity and intimacy. Helping Ethan wash his face in the morning, his hair falling forward as he bent over the sink. Steadying him when he lost his balance, my hands on his waist. The casual touches that accumulated throughout the day, guiding his injured arm, adjusting his sling, reaching past him for something, and ending up chest to chest in my small kitchen. And then there was the shower situation. A week into his stay, Ethan's doctor cleared him to shower as long as he kept the cast dry and didn't overexert his shoulder. Theoretically simple. In practice, a logistical nightmare. "I can't reach my back," Ethan admitted, standing in my bathroom with a garbage bag duct-taped over his cast and a towel around his waist. "Or my hair properly, or basically anything." I stood in the doorway, trying very hard not to notice how good he looked even injured, trying not to think about what he was asking. "You need help?" I said, stating the obvious. "Yeah," his face was flushed with embarrassment. "I know this is weird, I know it's a lot to ask, but Marcus, I smell like a gym bag that's been left in the sun, I can't stand it anymore." "Okay," I heard myself say. "Okay, we can work this out, I'll help." We established rules. Ethan would wear swim trunks to maintain some modesty. I would keep my clothes on and my eyes averted as much as possible. We would be quick and efficient and absolutely professional about the whole thing. The reality was infinitely more complicated than the plan. The first shower took 45 minutes because we had to figure out the mechanics, how to keep the cast dry, how to position him so I could reach everything, how to manage the water temperature and pressure. Ethan stood under the spray, his eyes closed, while I shampooed his hair with hands that trembled slightly. His hair was thick and dark, longer on top where it flopped forward when it was wet. I'd touched his hair before in casual, friendly ways, ruffling it when he said something stupid, fixing it when it stuck up weird, but this was different. This was intimate in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Okay," I asked, working the shampoo into a lather. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "That feels good, actually. I didn't realize how much I missed feeling clean." I rinsed his hair carefully, trying not to notice the way the water ran down his neck and shoulders, the way his muscles shifted under his skin. Trying not to think about how close we were, how vulnerable he was, how much trust this required. "Back now?" he asked, and I nodded even though he couldn't see me. I soaped up a washcloth and tried to approach this like any other task, just helping a friend, nothing more. But the moment I touched the washcloth to his back, something shifted in the air between us. Ethan's breath caught slightly, his shoulders tensed under my hands. "Sorry," I said immediately, "too rough." "No, it's fine, it's good." His voice sounded strained. "Just been a while since anyone touched me like that, even in a totally platonic shower help kind of way." I tried to laugh, tried to keep things light. "When's the last time someone helped you shower in a platonic way?" "Never, this is a first." He paused. "You're being really good about this, I appreciate it." "What are friends for?" I said, the words automatic even as my heart raced. I finished his back, working the washcloth over his shoulders, down his spine, trying to be thorough without being weird about it. Then his arms, careful around the injuries. His chest, his stomach, keeping my eyes on the tile wall and not on the expanse of skin under my hands. "I can get the rest," Ethan said, taking the washcloth from me. "Thanks." I stepped back, giving him space, and busied myself with getting a towel ready. We'd gotten through it, we'd maintained the boundaries, everything was fine. Except I couldn't stop thinking about the way Ethan's breath had hitched when I touched him, the way his muscles had tensed under my hands, the particular quality of tension in the small bathroom like electricity in the air before a storm. I told myself I was imagining things, reading into something that wasn't there. Ethan was straight and I was his friend helping him through an injury, and that was all this was. I repeated that to myself like a mantra while I helped him dry off, while I helped him into clean clothes, while we went through the rest of our evening routine like nothing had changed. But something had changed. I could feel it in the way Ethan looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, in the quality of silence between us, in the way the air felt heavy with unspoken things. I just didn't know what it meant. The second week brought a heat wave that turned my apartment into a sauna despite the air conditioning running constantly. We adapted: lighter clothes, cold showers, ice water always within reach. The lighter clothes meant Ethan spent most of his time in basketball shorts and a tank top, which did absolutely nothing for my ability to maintain appropriate boundaries in my own head. Not that I said anything, not that I did anything. I just suffered quietly and tried not to stare. The shower routine became easier with practice, though no less charged with that strange tension I couldn't quite name. We developed a rhythm: I'd help him undress and wrap his cast, he'd step into the shower, I'd wash his hair and back, he'd handle the rest, I'd help him dry off and get dressed. 45 minutes became 30, 30 became 20. We stopped talking through it, moving instead with the practiced coordination of people who'd done this 100 times instead of just a dozen. But the silence somehow made it worse, made me more aware of every point of contact, every accidental brush of skin, every sharp intake of breath. "Marcus," Ethan's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts one evening during a shower. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I said, rinsing shampoo from his hair. "Why are you still single?" The question caught me completely off guard, my hands stilled in his hair. "What?" "It's just, you're a great guy, successful, kind, funny, good-looking." He said this last part matter-of-factly, like he was listing my job qualifications. "And I know the breakup with David was over a year ago now. I guess I'm just wondering why you haven't started dating again." I resumed rinsing his hair, buying myself time to formulate an answer that wasn't, "Because I'm in love with you and no one else measures up." "I don't know," I said finally, "just haven't met the right person, I guess, and honestly I'm okay being single, it's simpler." "Simpler than what?" "Than wanting someone who doesn't want you back." The words slipped out before I could stop them, too honest and too revealing. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "Is there someone you want who doesn't want you?" I should have laughed it off, should have changed the subject. Instead I heard myself say, "Yeah, there is." "Who?" "Someone unavailable." My hands were still in his hair, still going through the motions. "It doesn't matter, it's not going anywhere." "Have you told them how you feel?" "No, and I'm not going to." "Why not?" "Because some things are better left unsaid, because I'd rather have this person in my life as a friend than risk losing them by making things complicated." I gently turned his head under the spray, rinsing out the last of the shampoo. "Some feelings aren't meant to be acted on." Ethan turned to look at me, water running down his face, his expression serious and searching. For a moment I thought he might push, might ask more questions I couldn't safely answer. Instead he just nodded slowly. "That sucks, I'm sorry." "It is what it is." I handed him the washcloth. "Come on, let's finish up before we use all the hot water." We didn't talk about it again, but the conversation hung between us like smoke. I caught Ethan watching me sometimes with a thoughtful expression, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I tried not to think about what would happen if he put the pieces together. 3 weeks into Ethan's stay, I came home from a rare in-person meeting to find him standing in the middle of my kitchen, surrounded by the scattered ingredients of what might have been an attempt at cooking. "What happened here?" I asked, surveying the damage. "I tried to make dinner," Ethan said, his frustration evident. "I thought I could manage something simple. I was wrong." Flour dusted the counter, a cracked egg was slowly oozing across the cutting board, a bag of pasta had somehow exploded, sending penne scattering across the floor. "Okay," I said, trying not to laugh. "What were you going for?" "Pasta with marinara, literally the simplest thing I could think of." He gestured helplessly with his good arm. "I couldn't open the jar, couldn't hold the pot steady with one hand, couldn't do any of it." The frustration in his voice went beyond the failed cooking attempt. This was about the loss of independence, the constant reminders of his limitations, the slow march of healing that never felt fast enough. I set down my bag and crossed to him, gently taking his good hand. "Hey, it's okay, we all have bad days." "This isn't a bad day, it's a bad 3 weeks." His voice cracked slightly. "I'm so tired of this, Marcus, tired of needing help with everything, tired of feeling useless, tired of being a burden." "You're not a burden," I said firmly. "You're my best friend and you're going through something hard and I'm glad I can be here for you. That's not a burden, that's just love." The word hung in the air between us. I hadn't meant to say it quite like that, hadn't meant to let that much truth slip out, but there it was. Ethan's eyes met mine, something unreadable flickering in their depths. Marcus. Come on, I interrupted, not wanting to hear whatever he was about to say, not ready for that conversation. Let's clean this up and order pizza, my treat. We worked together to restore order to the kitchen, and the moment passed. But I caught Ethan looking at me throughout the evening with that same searching expression, like he was seeing something he hadn't noticed before. That night I lay in bed unable to sleep, replaying the conversation. That's just love. Why had I said it like that? Why had I let my guard down? A soft knock on my door made me sit up. Marcus, Ethan's voice was quiet. Can I come in? Yeah, of course. He entered, a dark silhouette backlit by the hallway light, and I could tell from his posture something was bothering him. Can't sleep, I asked. Not really, he hesitated in the doorway. Can we talk? My heart rate kicked up. Sure, about what? Earlier, when you said, he trailed off, then started again. I've been thinking about what you said, about having feelings for someone unavailable. Oh God, this was it. This was the conversation I'd been dreading. Ethan. Is it me? The question was simple and direct, so very Ethan. No dancing around it, no subtle probing, just straight to the heart of the matter. I could have lied, should have lied. But I was so tired of pretending, so worn down from 3 weeks of constant proximity and careful boundaries and locked away feelings. Yes, I whispered. The silence that followed felt eternal. I couldn't see Ethan's face clearly in the darkness, couldn't read his expression, couldn't tell if I'd just ruined everything. How long, he finally asked. Since we met, pretty much, I laughed, the sound hollow. I know, I'm sorry, I never meant to make things weird, I've tried to keep it buried. Tried to just be your friend and nothing more, but you asked and I can't lie to you anymore. Marcus, Ethan crossed the room, sitting on the edge of my bed. Why didn't you tell me? Because you're straight, because you're my best friend and I didn't want to lose you, because some things are better left unsaid. I pulled my knees up to my chest, wrapping my arms around them. I've been okay with it, Ethan. I've dated other people. I've built a life that doesn't revolve around wanting something I can't have. I'm okay. Are you? I have to be. He was quiet for a long moment, and I could feel him thinking, processing, trying to figure out what to say. I need to tell you something, he said finally, and I need you to really hear it. Okay. I'm not as straight as you think I am. The words didn't make sense at first. I replayed them in my head, trying to parse their meaning. What? I'm not straight, Marcus. I don't know what I am exactly. Bi, maybe, queer, I'm still figuring it out. His voice was careful, measured, but I know I'm not straight. My world tilted sideways. Since when? Honestly, I've been questioning for years, since college really, but I was with Sarah and then after we broke up I was so focused on work and rebuilding my life that I never really let myself explore it. He shifted on the bed and I felt the mattress dip. These last few weeks though, being here with you, the way you take care of me, the way you look at me sometimes when you think I'm not paying attention. He trailed off and I realized I'd stopped breathing. What are you saying? I whispered. I'm saying I've been feeling things, noticing things, wanting things I've never let myself want before. His hand found mine in the darkness, his fingers intertwining with mine. I'm saying maybe you're not as unavailable as you think you are. Hope and terror warred in my chest. Ethan, you're vulnerable right now, you're injured and dependent on me and probably feeling grateful and maybe confusing that with. Don't, he interrupted, don't do that, don't tell me what I'm feeling. I'm not trying to. Yes, you are. You're trying to find a reason why this isn't real, why what I'm feeling is just gratitude or confusion or vulnerability. His grip on my hand tightened. But Marcus, I've known you for 8 years. I know the difference between friendship and something more, and what I'm feeling, it's more. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. The locked box where I kept all my feelings about Ethan was cracking open and everything I'd carefully contained was spilling out. I don't want to ruin our friendship, I finally managed. What if we could have more than friendship? What if we could have everything? What if we try and it doesn't work? What if we lose each other? What if we don't try and we lose this chance? Ethan shifted closer and I could feel the warmth of him even in the darkness. Marcus, I can't promise you it'll work. I can't promise I won't screw this up, especially since I'm new to this, but I can promise you that what I'm feeling is real, and I think it's worth the risk. Ethan, my voice broke on his name. Can I kiss you? He asked softly. I've been wanting to for weeks now. Every time you help me shower, every time you're close, I think about what it would be like to just close the distance. I should have said no, should have told him we needed to think about this, needed to be sure, needed to wait until he was healed and clear-headed and not dependent on me for basic daily tasks. Instead, I whispered yes. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to change my mind to pull away. When his lips met mine, it was gentle and tentative, a question more than a statement. I answered by kissing him back. The kiss deepened, years of want and longing pouring into it. Ethan's good hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. I wrapped my arms around him, careful of his injuries, pulling him closer. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed together. Wow, Ethan breathed, that was. Yeah, I agreed, it was. I want to do that again. Okay. We kissed again, slower this time, learning each other. His lips were soft, his stubble rough against my face. He tasted like the toothpaste I'd bought him and something uniquely Ethan underneath. When we finally stopped, it was only because Ethan winced, having moved his shoulder in a way that reminded us both he was still injured. Come here, I said, shifting to make room in my bed, carefully. He settled beside me and I helped him get comfortable, arranging pillows to support his injuries. When he was settled, he turned to face me in the darkness. I want you to know, he said seriously, this isn't just physical attraction, it's not just gratitude. I've been falling for you for a while now and I just didn't have the words for it yet. How long is a while? Remember when you and David broke up, and I came over and we spent that whole weekend watching terrible movies and eating junk food? Yeah. I remember being so angry at David for hurting you, and I remember thinking that anyone who had you and let you go was an idiot. Ethan's hand found mine again. And then I remember looking at you, messy hair, wearing my old college sweatshirt that you'd stolen, laughing at something stupid in the movie, and thinking you were the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. My throat was tight, that was over a year ago. I know, but I told myself it was just me being protective of my best friend, that I was just appreciating you as a person, that it didn't mean anything. He laughed softly. I'm really good at lying to myself, apparently. We're quite the pair, I said. Me in love with you for 8 years, you in denial about your feelings for over a year. We're idiots. Complete idiots. But we're figuring it out now, Ethan said. That counts for something, right? Yeah, I agreed, it counts for a lot. We lay there in the darkness, hands intertwined, neither of us quite ready to sleep, both of us still processing this shift in reality. Marcus, Ethan's voice was soft, will you hold me? I shifted closer, carefully wrapping my arms around him in a way that didn't aggravate his injuries. He settled against my chest with a sigh of contentment. This okay? I asked. Perfect, he murmured, this is perfect. I pressed a kiss to the top of his head, breathing in the scent of his shampoo, my shampoo, actually, since he'd been using my products. Get some sleep, I whispered, we'll figure out the rest in the morning. Okay, he said, already drowsy. Marcus. Yes. I'm really glad I called you that night from the hospital. Me too. Even if it took me getting injured to figure this out. Even then, I agreed. He fell asleep in my arms, his breathing evening out, his body relaxing against mine. I lay awake longer, still half convinced I was dreaming, that I'd wake up to find this was all wishful thinking. But Ethan's weight was solid and real against me, his warmth was tangible, the slight catch in his breathing when he shifted was genuine. This was happening. After 8 years of buried feelings and careful friendship, this was actually happening. I finally let myself sleep, my arms wrapped around the person I'd loved for so long, hope blooming cautious and fragile in my chest. The shift. Morning brought sunlight streaming through my curtains and Ethan still in my bed, his head on my chest, his casted arm draped carefully across my stomach. For a moment I thought I'd imagined the whole thing, the conversation, the confession, the kisses. Then Ethan stirred, lifting his head to look at me, and the smile that spread across his face was real and warm and meant for me. Morning, he said, his voice rough with sleep. Morning, I couldn't help smiling back. How's your shoulder? Sore, but worth it, he shifted, wincing slightly. I should probably take my pain meds. I'll get them. I started to move, but Ethan's good arm tightened around me. In a minute, I want to just stay like this for a second. So we did. We lay tangled together in my bed, morning sun warming the room, both of us savoring this new reality. Are you freaking out? Ethan asked eventually. A little, I admitted. Are you? Yeah, but in a good way, I think. He propped himself up enough to look at me properly. I meant what I said last night, all of it. I know I did too. So what do we do now? It was a fair question. We were in completely uncharted territory, best friends turned something more, living together, one of us dependent on the other for basic needs. I think, I said carefully, we take it slow, we figure out what this is without rushing, and we communicate about everything. I can do that, Ethan paused, although full disclosure I really want to kiss you again. Heat flooded through me, yeah. Yeah. But I also don't want to rush this or screw it up. He bit his lip, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times but that suddenly seemed impossibly endearing. So maybe we establish some ground rules, boundaries. That's probably smart, I agreed, even as every part of me wanted to pull him closer and forget about being sensible. We spent the morning over coffee and breakfast, having one of the most important conversations of our lives. We agreed to take things slowly, no jumping into bed together, no rushing past important steps just because we'd known each other for years. We agreed to communicate openly about our feelings, our fears, our needs. We agreed that if this didn't work out romantically, we'd do everything in our power to preserve the friendship. You're my best friend, Ethan said seriously. Whatever else happens, I don't want to lose that. You won't, I promised. We'll figure this out together. The shower that evening was different. The tension that had been there before now had a name and acknowledgement. When I washed Ethan's hair, my touch was gentle but no longer carefully neutral. When our eyes met, we didn't look away. This is weird, right? Ethan said as I worked shampoo into his hair. Good weird, but weird. Very weird, I agreed. Yesterday this was just helping a friend, today it feels like. Like foreplay, Ethan supplied, then immediately blushed. Sorry, too much. I laughed despite myself, maybe a little but not entirely wrong. I can't help it, you're washing my hair and being all gentle and domestic and all I can think about is how much I want to kiss you again. We established boundaries for a reason, I reminded him even as my heart raced. I know and I respect that, doesn't mean I can't think about it. Fair enough, I rinsed his hair trying to focus on the task and not on how much I agreed with him. For what it's worth, I'm thinking about it too. Good, Ethan said, his voice dropping lower. That's good to know. The rest of the shower was charged with a different kind of tension than before, not anxious or awkward but alive with possibility and want. We maintained our boundaries, but barely. That night, Ethan asked if he could sleep in my bed again. Just sleeping, he clarified. I slept better last night than I have in weeks and I want to be close to you. Just sleeping, I agreed. We settled into my bed, finding a comfortable position that didn't aggravate his injuries. Ethan's head rested on my chest, my arms wrapped carefully around him. Marcus, he said into the darkness. Yes. Thank you for everything, for helping me when I was injured, for being patient with me while I figured things out for this. I pressed a kiss to his hair. You don't have to thank me for caring about you. I know, but I want to anyway. He fell asleep first again, his breathing evening out, his body relaxing completely against mine. I lay awake, marveling at how right this felt, how natural. How terrifying. Because now I had something to lose. Not just the abstract possibility of Ethan, but the concrete reality of him in my arms, in my bed, in my life in this new way. I pushed the fear down and focused on the present moment. The warmth of Ethan against me, the sound of his breathing, the simple miracle of having him here. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight this was enough. The next few days were an adjustment. We were learning how to be, whatever we were, not quite boyfriends that felt too fast, too presumptuous, but definitely more than friends. We held hands while watching TV, exchanged kisses that started casual and quickly turned heated before we remembered our boundaries and pulled back. Spent hours talking about everything: his journey to understanding his sexuality, my years of buried feelings, what we wanted this to be. I never let myself think about guys before, Ethan admitted one evening as we sat together on the couch. I mean, I noticed them. I'd see an attractive guy and think objectively he's good looking, but I always wrote it off as just appreciating aesthetics or whatever. When did that change? I don't know exactly, it was gradual. He paused, thinking. I remember when you came out to me junior year, you were so nervous, and I was just thinking about how brave you were, how much I admired you for being honest about who you were. I remember that conversation, I said. You were amazing about it, so supportive. And then you started dating David, and I had this weird feeling in my chest every time I saw you two together. I told myself it was just being protective of you, wanting to make sure he treated you right. Ethan laughed without humor. Looking back, I think it was jealousy. You were jealous of David. Of both of you, honestly, of David for having you, of you for being brave enough to pursue what you wanted. He turned to look at me. And yeah, I think some part of me was jealous that David got to kiss you and hold you and I didn't. But you didn't know that's what you wanted then. No, but I think I felt it anyway, I just didn't have the framework to understand it. I took his hand, threading our fingers together. For what it's worth, David was never you, no one has ever been you. That's both flattering and a lot of pressure. True, but I mean it. I squeezed his hand. I've dated other people, I've tried to move on, but you've always been the one I measured everyone else against. Ethan's eyes were bright with emotion. I'm going to do my best to be worth that, to be worth you. You already are. We kissed then, slow and sweet, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise. 4 weeks into Ethan's injury, we went to his follow-up appointment. The doctor was pleased with his progress. The bone was healing well, the shoulder was improving, he was regaining range of motion faster than expected. You've been taking care of yourself, the doctor observed, or someone's been taking care of you. Ethan glanced at me with a soft smile. Yeah, someone has. The doctor gave us exercises to do at home, stretches to help with the shoulder mobility, and the hopeful news that the cast might come off in just 2 more weeks. 2 weeks, Ethan said in the car on the way home. I could be back to normal in 2 weeks. There was excitement in his voice, but something else too, something that might have been anxiety. You okay? I asked. Yeah, he trailed off, looking out the window. What happens when I'm healed, when I don't need your help anymore? The question hung in the air. It was something we'd both been carefully not thinking about, the fact that the circumstances that had brought us together in this new way were temporary. What do you mean? I asked, even though I knew exactly what he meant. I mean, do I go back to my apartment? Do we go back to how things were before? Or, he turned to look at me, or is this real enough that it doesn't matter if I'm healed? I pulled into my parking space and turned off the car, giving myself a moment to formulate an answer. Ethan, what we have isn't dependent on you being injured. It's not about me taking care of you or you needing me. That might have been the catalyst, but that's not what this is. Then what is it? It's 8 years of friendship and trust and caring about each other finally becoming something more. I reached for his hand. You being healed doesn't change how I feel about you. If anything, it means we get to figure out what this looks like when we're on equal footing. He relaxed visibly. I've been worried about that once I don't need you anymore, you might realize this was just, I don't know, circumstance. It's not circumstance, it's you. I lifted his hand to my lips, pressing a kiss to his knuckles. You could be completely healthy and independent and I'd still want this, want you. Good, he said softly, because I want this too, want you too. We sat in the car for a few more minutes, hands linked, both of us processing this new development, the approaching end of Ethan's dependence on me and the beginning of whatever came next. That night, Ethan's shoulder was particularly painful after the doctor's manipulations. I helped him with his exercises, then with his shower, then got him settled in bed, my bed, where he'd been sleeping every night for over a week now with his pain medication. I hate this, he muttered, his face tight with discomfort. Just when I think I'm getting better, something reminds me I'm not there yet. Healing isn't linear, I said, adjusting the pillows behind him. You're allowed to have setbacks. I'm tired of setbacks, I'm tired of being patient. His good hand reached for me. I just want to be able to hold you properly, to kiss you without having to worry about positions and pillows and not aggravating my injuries. Soon, I promised, 2 more weeks until the cast comes off. Maybe a few weeks after that until your shoulder is fully healed, and then we'll have all the time in the world. And if I can't wait that long? The heat in his eyes made my breath catch. Ethan. I know, boundaries, taking it slow, being sensible. He pulled me closer with his good arm. But Marcus, I've wanted you for over a year. I've been falling in love with you for over a year, and now that I finally get to have you, having to wait feels like torture. You're falling in love with me, the words came out whispered odd. I thought that was obvious. His smile was soft, vulnerable. Yeah, Marcus, I'm falling in love with you, pretty sure I'm most of the way there already. My heart felt too big for my chest. I love you, I've loved you for so long. I know, and I'm sorry it took me so long to catch up. You're worth the wait, I said, echoing his words from earlier. We kissed, and this time when it deepened, when it turned heated, we didn't pull back quite as quickly. Ethan made a sound low in his throat that shot straight through me, his good hand fisting in my shirt. Marcus, he breathed against my lips, please. Please what? I don't know, more something I need, he made a frustrated sound. I need you closer. I shifted carefully, mindful of his injuries, moving to lie beside him on the bed. He turned toward me and we fit together like we'd been designed for this. Better, I asked. Better, he agreed, but still not enough. We made out like teenagers, all desperate kisses and wandering hands, until Ethan winced and we were both reminded that his injuries were real and limiting. Sorry, I said immediately, pulling back. Did I hurt you? No, just moved wrong, he looked frustrated with himself. I hate that my body keeps betraying me like this. Hey, I cupped his face gently, there's no rush, we have time. Do we though? What if I go back to my apartment when I'm healed and we lose this closeness? That's not going to happen. But what if it does, what if? I kissed him quiet, pouring all my certainty and love into it. When I pulled back, his eyes were wide and a little dazed. We're not losing this, I said firmly. Whether you stay here or go back to your apartment or we figure out something else entirely, we're not losing this. I won't let us. Promise. Promise. He settled against me, his head on my chest, his body finally relaxing. Okay, I trust you. Good, now get some sleep, you need to heal. Bossy, he murmured, but there was affection in it. You love it. I love you. The words were sleepy and casual, like he'd said them 1,000 times before, like they were the easiest thing in the world. I love you too, I whispered, pressing a kiss to his hair. He was asleep within minutes, exhausted from the day and the pain medication. I lay awake longer, my mind racing with plans and possibilities. Because Ethan was right to be worried. His apartment lease was month to month. He could technically go back anytime. And while I believed what I'd said, that our relationship wasn't dependent on proximity, I also knew how easy it would be to slip back into old patterns if we didn't actively choose otherwise. An idea began to form, tentative at first, then growing more solid. By the time I finally fell asleep, I knew what I wanted to do. Now I just had to figure out how to ask. The leap. The next week passed in a blur of work, doctor's appointments, and stolen moments of intimacy. Ethan's shoulder continued to improve and he was regaining more independence each day. He could feed himself now, could type reasonably well with his left hand, could handle most of the basics of daily life except for the shower. The shower remained our shared ritual, part necessity, part intimacy, part reminder of how far we'd come. We'd gotten so comfortable with it that the awkwardness had entirely disappeared, replaced by a domesticity that felt both natural and charged with possibility. I'm going to miss this, Ethan admitted one evening as I washed his hair, when I'm healed and can do this myself again. Who says you'll have to do it yourself? I asked, my fingers working shampoo into a lather. What, you're offering to keep washing my hair even when I don't need help? Maybe if you want. He turned slightly to look at me, water running down his face. I want. We were interrupted by his phone ringing, his boss calling about a project deadline. Ethan hurried through the rest of his shower so he could take the call, leaving me to clean up and think about the question I still hadn't asked. That night, after we'd settled into bed, I decided to just go for it. Ethan, I want to ask you something. Okay, he shifted to look at me in the dim light. What's up? When you're healed and the cast comes off and you're ready to be independent again, I paused, gathering courage. What if you didn't go back to your apartment? What do you mean? I mean, what if you moved in here, officially, not as a temporary thing because you're injured but as a choice, because we want to live together? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, processing. You want me to move in with you? Yes, if you want to, the words came out in a rush. I know it's fast, I know we're still figuring out what this relationship is, but Ethan, having you here these last few weeks has felt right, natural, like this is how it's supposed to be. It has felt natural, he agreed slowly. But Marcus, that's a big step. What if we're not ready? What if living together full-time is different from this? It will be different, you'll be healthy and independent and we'll both be working and we'll have to figure out how to balance work and relationship and personal space. I took his hand. But I want to try, I want to build a life with you and I think we can do that. You're serious about this? Completely serious, your lease is month to month anyway. You could give notice, move your stuff over gradually and by the time you're fully healed you'd already be settled here. I paused. Or if you'd rather we get a new place together, something that's ours instead of just mine, we could do that too. Ethan's eyes were wide, processing everything I was saying. You've really thought about this. I have, because Ethan, I meant what I said. I love you, and I want to build a life with you. This feels like the next step. He was quiet for another long moment and my heart hammered with anxiety. Maybe I'd pushed too hard, moved too fast, maybe. Yes, Ethan said softly. Yes. Yes, I want to move in with you not just because it's convenient or because I'm already here, but because you're right, this feels like how it's supposed to be. His smile was soft and genuine. I want to build a life with you too. Relief and joy flooded through me. I pulled him into a kiss, careful of his injuries but unable to completely contain my enthusiasm. Really, I asked when we broke apart, you're sure? I'm sure, terrified but sure, he laughed. We're really doing this, aren't we? 8 years of friendship, 5 weeks of dating, and we're moving in together. When you put it like that, it sounds insane. Maybe it is insane, but it also feels right. He settled against my chest, his good arm wrapping around me. Besides, where else am I going to find someone who will wash my hair even when I can do it myself? I laughed, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. Good point, I have set the bar pretty high. You really have, his voice grew more serious. Marcus, thank you for taking a chance on this, on us. I know I'm new to all of this and I'm probably going to screw up sometimes, but we'll both screw up sometimes, that's part of being in a relationship. I tightened my arms around him, but we'll figure it out together. Together, he echoed, I like the sound of that. We fell asleep tangled together, both of us dreaming of the future we were building. The day Ethan's cast came off was a celebration. 6 weeks of immobility ended with a saw and a lot of itching, and Ethan immediately wanted to do everything he'd been unable to do. I can type with both hands, he announced, demonstrating on his laptop. I can open jars, I can tie my own shoes. Don't overdo it, I cautioned, even as I smiled at his enthusiasm. Your wrist is still weak, you need to build up strength gradually. I know, but Marcus, I can wash my own hair now, he waggled his eyebrows, unless you still want to do it for me. That offer stands, I said, pulling him into a kiss. But for tonight, why don't you celebrate your newfound independence, take a shower by yourself, prove you remember how? He laughed, okay, fair, but tomorrow I'm taking you up on that offer. That evening, while Ethan was luxuriating in his first solo shower in 6 weeks, his phone rang. I answered it without thinking. We'd gotten comfortable with handling each other's calls. Hello. Oh. Is this Marcus? A woman's voice, friendly and curious. Yes, who's this? This is Ethan's mom. I've been trying to reach him about Thanksgiving plans. My stomach dropped. Ethan's mom, who he definitely hadn't told about us yet. He's in the shower right now, can I have him call you back? Of course, and Marcus, while I have you, thank you so much for taking care of Ethan these last few weeks. He's told me how wonderful you've been. It's no problem, he's my best friend. He's lucky to have you. There was a pause. Actually, I wanted to invite you to Thanksgiving too. You've been such a big part of Ethan's life and I'd love to finally meet you in person. Oh, I'd have to check my schedule. Of course, just think about it, we'd love to have you. When Ethan emerged from the shower looking relaxed and happy, I told him about the call. His expression immediately shifted to something more anxious. My mom invited you to Thanksgiving. She did, I told her I'd think about it. I paused. Ethan, have you told your family about us? No, not yet. He ran his hand through his damp hair. I know I should, I want to, but I don't know how to explain that I'm dating my male best friend when I didn't even know I was bi until a few weeks ago. That's fair, this is your journey, you tell people when you're ready. But I want to tell them, especially if you're coming to Thanksgiving. He took my hands. Will you come to Thanksgiving? As your friend or as your boyfriend? As my boyfriend, if you're comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that, the question is whether you are. Ethan was quiet for a moment thinking, I want to tell them before we go, I don't want to spring it on them in person, so I'll call my mom back and I'll tell her. You don't have to do this just because she invited me. I'm doing it because I want to, because you're important to me and I want my family to know that. He squeezed my hands. Will you be there when I call for moral support? Of course. An hour later, we sat together on the couch, Ethan's phone on speaker between us. His hand was tight in mine. Mom, do you have a few minutes? I need to tell you something. Of course, sweetie, what's going on? This is harder than I thought it would be. Ethan took a deep breath. Mom, I'm bisexual and Marcus isn't just my best friend, he's my boyfriend. We've been together for about a month now. The silence on the other end felt eternal. Ethan, his mother finally said, her voice careful, this is unexpected. I know, trust me, it was unexpected for me too. He glanced at me, gathering strength. But it's also real and I'm happy, really happy. How long have you known that you're bisexual? I've been questioning for a while, but I only really figured it out recently. Marcus helped me understand a lot about myself. Another pause, and you're sure about this, about him? More sure than I've ever been about anything. Okay, his mother's voice softened. Okay, sweetheart, thank you for telling me. This is a lot to process, but I appreciate you being honest with me. So you're okay with it? I'm your mother, I love you no matter what, and if Marcus makes you happy, then I'm happy for you. She paused. I'll need some time to adjust to this new information, and I'll need to explain to your father before Thanksgiving. I understand, take whatever time you need. After they hung up, Ethan let out a long breath. That went better than I expected, actually. She sounded supportive. She's processing, that's her way. He turned to me, but she didn't freak out, that's a good sign. It is, I pulled him into a hug. I'm proud of you, that took guts. I couldn't have done it without you here. Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. We spent the rest of the evening cuddled on the couch, both of us processing this new development, both of us cautiously optimistic about what it meant. Over the next 2 weeks, Ethan gradually moved his belongings from his apartment to mine. We gave notice on his lease, packed up his life, and merged our spaces into something that was ours together. It was an adjustment, two people with different habits and preferences trying to share a relatively small apartment. We had our first real argument about kitchen organization, Ethan's chaotic, creative system clashing with my need for order, and worked through it by compromising and communicating. This is normal, right? Ethan asked after we'd resolved the kitchen debate. The adjustment period, the occasional argument. Completely normal, we're building a life together, there's going to be friction sometimes. As long as we can work through it, I think we'll be okay. We'll more than be okay, I assured him. His shoulder continued to improve with physical therapy, and by the time Thanksgiving rolled around, he had almost full range of motion back. We drove to his parents' house together, both nervous about the reception we'd receive. Ethan's mother met us at the door with warm hugs for both of us. His father was more reserved but polite. His younger sister, who'd known about us from the start, was thrilled. Dinner was slightly awkward at first, too many careful questions and watchful glances. But as the evening wore on, as Ethan's family saw how we interacted, how natural we were together, the tension eased. You make him happy, Ethan's mother said to me quietly as we did dishes after dinner. I can see it in his eyes, he looks at you like you hung the moon. He makes me happy too, I said honestly, more than I can express. Good, that's all I want for him, for both my children, really just happiness. That night, lying in Ethan's childhood bed, we'd insisted on sharing a room, much to his father's discomfort. Ethan turned to me with a soft smile. Thank you for being here, for meeting my family, for being patient with all of this. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Not even in your own bed, where you have more than 3 feet of space. Not even then, I pulled him closer. Wherever you are is where I want to be. Smooth talker. You love it. I love you, he corrected. The smooth talking is just a bonus. We fell asleep tangled together in his too small bed, both of us thinking about how far we'd come and how much further we had to go. The foundation. 6 months later. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Ethan moving around the kitchen. Morning sunlight streamed through our bedroom curtains, our bedroom, not mine or his, but ours, and I took a moment to just appreciate the reality of my life. Ethan had fully recovered from his injuries. His wrist had healed completely, his shoulder was back to full strength, and he'd returned to his regular gym routine. We'd settled into a comfortable rhythm of cohabitation, working from home together, navigating each other's schedules and moods, building a life that was messy and imperfect and absolutely right. We still had our adjustment moments, learning to communicate about difficult things, navigating the complexities of a relationship that had started as friendship, figuring out how to balance independence and togetherness. But we also had moments of perfect contentment, lazy Sunday mornings in bed, cooking dinner together, the nightly ritual of getting ready for bed side by side. And yes, sometimes I still washed Ethan's hair in the shower, even though he was perfectly capable of doing it himself. Morning, Ethan said, appearing in the bedroom doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. I made breakfast. Well, I made toast and scrambled eggs, but still, it's food. You made breakfast? I sat up, accepting the coffee gratefully. What's the occasion? Do I need an occasion to make breakfast for my boyfriend? No, but you usually don't. Fair, he settled onto the bed beside me. Okay, there might be a reason. Remember how I said I had a big project I was working on, the one I couldn't tell you about yet? Yes. Well, it's done and it got approved by the client, and Marcus, it's huge, like career-defining huge. His eyes were bright with excitement. They want to feature it in a national campaign, my work featured nationally. I pulled him into a kiss, coffee forgotten. That's amazing, I'm so proud of you. There's more, he was practically vibrating with excitement. They want me to come to New York for a week for the launch, they're paying for everything, hotel, travel, meals, and I can bring a +1. You want me to come to New York with you? Of course I want you to come, you've been my support through all of this, you helped me heal, helped me grow, helped me become the person who could create this work. He took my hands. I want you there to celebrate with me. Then I'm there, absolutely. We spent the morning celebrating, making plans, dreaming about the future. Later, we'd have our usual routine work, lunch together. An evening walk around the neighborhood, normal, domestic, perfect. But for now, we just sat together in bed, drinking coffee and talking about everything and nothing, two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way and built something real. Hey Marcus, Ethan said eventually. Yes. Thank you. For what? For answering the phone that night, for taking me in, for helping me heal, for being patient while I figured out what I wanted. He squeezed my hand, for loving me. Thank you for letting me, I said softly, for being brave enough to explore this, for choosing me even when it was scary and uncertain. Best choice I ever made. Same. We kissed, slow and sweet, two people who'd almost missed each other, who'd almost let fear and uncertainty win. But we'd been brave, we'd taken the leap, and we'd built something beautiful. I love you, Ethan said. I love you too. And in that moment, in our shared bedroom with sunlight streaming through the windows and the whole future ahead of us, everything was exactly as it should be. SUBCRIB FOO more.